Hey everyone, it's Carl, the Olivewood Piper. Just thought I'd come on here and make a quick video to say thank you to my buddy Larry Stiles, Toymakerlarry. He sent me a package and I already opened it, but he sent me some Cornell and Deal Pegasus. Some Cornell and Deal Mocha, some Boswell's Blackjack, and some Boswell's Sweet and Mild, and then a nice tin of Lane Limited Black Raspberry. Larry, you're far too generous and too kind. I really appreciate it. I just got off the phone with Larry. I was trying to contact him and it was going to his voicemail, and I got a little concerned that everything was okay, and I guess they had a power outage out by him. And that's why I couldn't contact him. But he's doing fine. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for that wonderful gift. It was very kind of you, and certainly not necessary, but I appreciate it. Last time when we spoke, I was telling you about my introduction into funeral business, and it was kind of interesting that we did make an appointment to go to this funeral service, and my friend was the one who was interested in it, and supposedly he wanted to pursue a career in that, which is fine. I went along with him. So we go into this funeral business. I knock on the door, and somebody says, "Come in." And I see this guy sitting behind the desk who's about my age, and he looked awfully familiar. And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and then I said to him, "Is that you, Ron?" And he said, "Is that you, Carl?" I said, "Yeah." And it was amazing. He was my childhood friend, and around the 3rd grade he had moved to California with his family. And I lost track of him, never saw him again. And lo and behold, he's the nephew of the guy who owns the funeral service. And he'd been working with his uncle. So we go in the place, and I explained to him, why we're there and stuff like that. He said, "Yeah, I knew you guys were coming." And so we catch up on old times. And he said, "Well, we got a body in there that needs to be dressed and casketed. And we need to go to the funeral home and do that." So I said, "Okay." Now I gotta tell you, I walked in the prep room and I saw this little old lady laying on the table. Man, my knees started to knock, and I had a cold sweat. It was the first time I'd ever seen a deceased person. And my friend, he was in no better shape than I was. So we take this remains to a funeral home, and we dressed the lady and we casketed her at the funeral home, and said goodbye to my friend. And on the way home, my buddy says to me, "I'm done." He said, "That's it. I can't do this." He said, "There's no way I can deal with that. No way I can touch people that are dead and all that kind of thing." Me, on the other hand, I was kind of intrigued by it, and I actually thought it was pretty cool to pursue that. So I ended up with a meeting with the owner of the place, and I made an agreement with him, and I said, "I'll tell you what, I will work for free if you teach me the business." And since he was a funeral service is a place that does all the prep work, the embalming and such. for a funeral home, and then the remains are transported to a funeral home and laid in a casket, cosmetized and such. And a lot of funeral homes don't either don't have the facility to do it or don't want to do it on their own, so they hire a funeral service to do the embalming and such. So he agreed to do that, and that's how I started my my foray into the funeral business. And I was in college at the time, and I would come down, take the train from New York City, come down to Brooklyn, and go to the funeral service and work there. Sometimes we had work to do, sometimes there wasn't any work. But I was learning the business at the time, and this was in the late 60s. So there was no AIDS at that time, at least that we knew about. So your hygiene dealing with the bodies wasn't necessarily what it is today. And I remember my boss wouldn't let us wear gloves, and which today I think about it and I can't believe I did what I did, not wearing surgical gloves. But anyway, I worked there for a while, and my buddy Ronnie was working there as well. And then he got drafted into the military, and he went away, subsequently was sent to Vietnam. He went in as a second lieutenant, and I think eventually became a first lieutenant. And I remember he had sent 1 or 2 letters home, and he was having a horrible time there, very difficult. He was in infantry, and you know, just a horrible situation, leeches and what have you, and I pretty much lost contact with him after that, and it was disconcerting because I had finally found him, and then I lost him again. Never knew what happened to him. I wasn't still working at the funeral service when or if he got discharged from the military, and so it was kind of interesting. Many years later, many years, I think I was in my 50s, and I just happened to be sitting at my computer, and I said, I wonder whatever happened to my buddy. So I put his name in and Googled his name, and up comes a I guess it was an article written about a battle in Vietnam, and in the article is this fellow with my friend's name, who was an officer, and I guess his platoon or whatever group he had with him at the time, they were pinned down by enemy machine gun fire. It was an enemy position that was laying down some serious fire on his platoon. It was an ambush, and they were pinned down. He had several casualties, and at one point, I guess the way the article read, that my buddy had about enough of lying down getting shot at. He got up with a hand grenade, ran toward the machine gun position, hurled a hand grenade, and took out the enemy position. I believe he was awarded the Silver Star for rescuing his platoon. And I was wondering if that was my friend. So I continued to research his name further, and I find out there was a real estate agency in Florida by the name, or he was in this real estate agency. The guy had the same name. So I contacted the agency, and I said, you know, I'm looking to speak with such and such, and I sent him an email, and I said to him, I don't know if you remember me, because I was in my 50s. We were both in our 50s at the time. And I said, but I filled in some details about our childhood and this, that, and the other thing. And I get a note back, and he says, you know, the past is kind of sketchy. He said, but yeah, I'm the guy. I'm the guy you're looking for. And it was absolutely unbelievable to find him after all these years. And thank God he was safe. He got back from Vietnam and in one piece, thank God. And he had a brother who was also in Vietnam, a helicopter pilot, and he actually lived here in Florida. And my friend lived in Florida, and he was going up to visit his brother. And he said, and I said to him, well, why don't you stop by the house? I said, we'll have some dinner and stuff and, you know, cover old times. And he did. He and his wife came by for dinner. And it was so fantastic to see him after all these years. And the interesting thing was I hated to ask him, but I said, you know, Ron, I read this article, and they were talking about your experience. And I said, that had to be pretty harrowing. And he said, oh, he said, trust me, they made a big thing out of it. He said, really what happened was, he said, I was moving to another position. I tripped. The hand grenade went out of my hand, and it went into the enemy position and then blew him up. And that was my friend Ronnie, not taking any credit for doing what he did and having incredible courage to be able to do that under fire. So we talked about old times. We talked about my boss, who was his uncle, and it was a great time. It was great meeting him again. That was my friend Ronnie. So now, when I continue with this, I will continue with my stories during my career in the funeral business, both with the funeral service with his uncle, who taught me everything I knew. And as I moved forward through that process, it was probably the most incredible experience I ever had. I've done a lot of jobs in my life, but that was so unique and so different than any job I've ever done. So next time I will proceed to tell you a little about my experience working in this funeral service, and then move forward after that. So thank you so much for listening. I held you guys almost 13 minutes. It's a lot longer than I normally make videos. By the way, before I forget, this was the pipe that my son-in-law generously bought me in Amsterdam. It's a Big Ben. It's a beautiful pipe, smokes great, and I had some Carter Hall in it that I'm just about finished with. So on that note, I'll let you guys go. Have a great evening. God bless you all. Health and happiness to you and all of your loved ones. You take care. I'll see you again soon. Bye.